Good evening. For those of you who I have not had the privilege of meeting, my name is Brother Mark Pointer from Gamma Xi chapter. I am a Sigma Chi, and I am a fraternal brother of Charles Thatcher. We're about to conduct the Sigma Chi White Rose ceremony. It is a public ritual we use to honor a brother who has entered the chapter eternal. As a matter of background for our friends here present, our fraternity was founded in 1855 on lofty principles, hence the white cross emblem which we wear. To complement the cross, the flower of Sigma Chi is the white rose. Brothers in Sigma Chi, we are gathered here to pay our tribute of love and respect for the memory of our beloved brother, Dr. Charles Thatcher. All honor to his name. On that day when the white cross of Sigma Chi was placed upon Brother Chuck's chest, in his heart, he accepted our way of life by our lofty principles. The white cross that he wore so proudly on the outside was but a representation of the life that he led from the inside. This evening, let us remember the legacy that Chuck Thatcher has left in our hearts as we celebrate his life. We meet because of his passing from our circle to the chapter eternal. And yet in our hearts is the confidence that his living spirit hovers near. To his dear ones and friends present, we would bring our expression of sympathy, and to his memory, we would offer our homage for his qualities of heart and mind. As a friend, as a brother among us, and as a man of affairs, we have known him as loyal and devoted to the high ideals of the white cross which we wear. His friendship was enduring. His generosities were large beyond compare, and his life was an inspiration to all of us. He loved his fraternity, but he knew that its helpfulness and sympathies were meant to be broader than the bounds of the organization. His loyalty was grounded in the faith that fraternalism stands finally for better citizenship, for a more noble civilization, and for the higher ideals of life in its service to man and reverence to God. And now I'd like to call on past Grand Tribune and alumni representative to the Executive Committee, Brother Bob Wilson, to read the 23rd Psalm.
A reading from the book of Psalms. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever.
Thank you, Brother Bob. And now I think it is only appropriate to share some sentiments about Brother Chuck. I'd first like to call upon past Grand Consul, Brother Dick Hester.
Thank you, Brother Quiner and Brother Wilson. I am honored to have been asked to share a few thoughts on behalf of all of you on the call this evening and those who couldn't make it about Brother Chuck Thatcher, a man with a rare combination of heart and intellect, a Sigma Chi hero of mine, as I know he was for so many others. Chuck would want us to laugh and smile during this virtual White Rose ceremony, amid an inevitable tear. So I will say a few words that will make those who admired and loved Chuck will make you smile. A what? Hickory dickory dock. Although I can't see you, I feel the smiles. And for my undergraduate brothers on the call, especially those from Chuck's beloved Theta Theta chapter, who may have only known him as the legend within the chapter, as well as within the general fraternity, I will explain. I first met then Grand Consul Thatcher when I was consul at Epsilon Omega chapter. Headquarters called the chapter and said, the Grand Consul will be visiting the chapter and attending your initiation. No pressure there. Later that day, Chuck himself called, and he asked if the Student Center at Ball State had hotel rooms, as he would prefer to stay on campus near the undergraduates, which told me a lot about him right then. I said I would make a reservation for him, and I asked if he drank, and if so, what was his beverage of choice? He responded that he did drink occasionally and preferred vodka and Coke. I said, what? He laughed. The first time I heard that very distinctive laugh, almost a giggle. And he said, well, yep, that's what I call it. A what? It's I get the same reaction every time. When Chuck arrived for initiation, we were rehearsing. And in typical Chuck Thatcher fashion, he was warm and reassuring, which alleviated our nervousness. Now, hickory dickory dock, the mouse went up the clock. The story Chuck told every time he delivered his famous time management presentation at workshop, which was often because it was so popular. I bet many of us who heard it as undergraduates and or faculty members still have his time management handout and still utilize many of the concepts in our daily lives. Chuck's presentation, as whenever he spoke, was inspirational, yet practical. And perhaps that's due to his engineering professor background. Chuck was always undergraduate oriented, always teaching, always listening. He was part of a group that developed and facilitated a chapter retreat program in the mid-1970s, which focused on individual assessment and development, leadership and team building. It was called MDP, for Membership Development Program. Chuck recruited me and others for that program and really taught us how to facilitate. It was a program way ahead of its time. So when it came time to develop the program we now know as Horizons, especially the Huntsman Leadership Summit portion of it, it was only natural to ask Chuck to be a part of the initial development committee. And he was an integral part. Well, towards the end of the Horizons pilot program, over 20 years ago now, I was sitting in the back of the room with Chuck, just the two of us. And I'll never forget, he leaned over and said, Dick, you and I have had fairly successful careers. Can you only imagine how much more successful we could have been if we only had this type of value-based leadership training when we were undergraduates? He said, this is a gift to our undergraduates, and they deserve it. And who could forget, if you've been at a Grand Chapter recently, how Chuck so sincerely and emotionally reminded us about the importance and benefit of conducting the ritualistic portions of our chapter meetings appropriately. Again, O is teaching. We all know the reality of entering the chapter eternal one day. But I was betting if anyone could live forever, it would be Chuck. And in a way, he will. He will live forever in the many of us who were so impacted by his life. His legacy is enduring. All honor to his name.
Thank you for those heartfelt sentiments, Brother Dick. And now it's only appropriate that we hear from a family member of Brother Chuck, his beloved daughter, Carol Thatcher. Carol?
Good evening. On behalf of Brother Charles M. Chuck Thatcher and his extended families, thank you all for joining this celebration of his life this evening. We especially would like to thank Mike Church, as well as Steve Schuyler, Mark Quiner, Dick Hester, Bob Wilson, Dakota Neff, and Ryan Liskey for their efforts in making possible this tribute and white rose ceremony for our father during this time of COVID-19. We also would like to thank Frank Raymond for the continued support and friendship he gave to our father over so many years. I believe he was the last SIG to reach out to Chuck in December, and I know how much that meant to him. It's not often that a person gets to provide commentary for his own eulogy, but Brother Thatcher was unique in so many ways. I recently found a self-introduction he wrote in the late 70s, and it seemed a perfect example of his wit and a good opening for our remarks. Our speaker this evening is a man who had to get 3 degrees, including his PhD, from the University of Michigan before they would let him out, who was then exiled from Michigan faculty to get industrial experience with Standard Oil of Indiana, and who was then deported back to Michigan when his refinery unit blew up and caused a $10 million fire, who won great obscurity as chairman of the chemical engineering department at Pratt Institute in Brooklyn, and who was subsequently sentenced to a 7-year term as Dean of Engineering and Science there, who, under cover of a national award for teaching excellence, escaped to Arkansas in 1970 and now hides out there as a distinguished professor of chemical engineering, who was fingered and found guilty of outstanding teaching by the Arkansas Alumni Association in 1977, who moonlighted as international president of the Sigma Chi social fraternity in 1975 to 77, who was a deepwater sailor, distinguished himself by losing a 40-foot sloop off the rocks off the coast of Maine, and who, as a barbershop quartet singer and arranger, can't find 3 others willing to sing with him, who is a regular jogger, consistently runs a 4-mile minute in at least twice that time, who insisted on writing this introduction himself, and who, having been promised his usual honorarium of nothing at all, proposes to speak to us on the unlikely topic, "If you have to ask, you can't afford it." Dr. Charles M. Chuck Thatcher. To say that Chuck was devoted to Sigma Chi would be an understatement. For the majority of his 98.5 years, he dedicated boundless energy to the fraternity and provided unexcelled leadership in the advancement of its missions. As you know, he probably received every award and honor the fraternity could bestow upon a brother, including his serving as the 48th Grand Consul from 1975 to 1977. And his service to the fraternity was undiminished thereafter. As recently as 2017, Chuck attended Grand Chapter in Providence, Rhode Island, with his nephew, Brother Thomas Michael Thatcher. Later that year, he also attended the summer workshop, but as he said, only because they gave him something meaningful to do. Chuck was a significant SIG in every sense of those words. He was an admired faculty member of the Balfour Leadership Training Workshop for decades, delivering his time management lecture to generations of SIGs, even though the workshop invariably fell on his wedding anniversary. He provided invaluable insight and advice to undergraduate brothers at the workshops. The leadership was informed by his vast experience as a brilliant professor and frequent university administrator. In January, Chuck received a letter from the Sigma Chi Foundation letting him know that Ian Malinow, a member of his undergraduate chapter at the University of Michigan, had received a scholarship. The foundation has a practice of providing scholarships to undergraduate men in honor of past recipients of the William H. Carlisle Jr. Outstanding Workshop Facilitator Award, which Chuck received in 1979. The letter invited Chuck to reach out to Ian and begin a mentoring relationship with him. We are truly humbled to know that, even as he approached his 99th birthday, our father would have been an active participant in that process, helping to mentor a brother over 70 years a junior. It's just who he was. Chuck was proud to have been instrumental in so many of the SIG's campaigns. He was especially pleased to help eliminate the scourge of hazing and to embrace the processes of learning, inspiration, and achievement. He believed in diversity and inclusion, and his conception of brotherhood extended beyond his beloved fraternity. He was ever a fair man, a man of goodwill toward all. In the last years of his life, he often lamented the senseless vitriol that has so seriously undermined civil discourse in our nation. Chuck lived his life in a manner consistent with his fraternity's ideals and aspirations for its members. He accurately can be described as a Renaissance man, teacher, scholar, author, administrator, musician, soldier, sailor, athlete, actor, raconteur, wit, philanthropist, family man, and brother in every sense of the word. His love of Sigma Chi extended beyond the grave. He left a legacy, bequeathing fully 1/5 of his considerable estate to the Sigma Chi Foundation for love of the brotherhood that had so richly contributed to his happiness. He now receives one of the honors he always wanted, the White Rose Ceremony, a final ritual to commemorate a SIG for the ages. Speaking for myself and my brother, Professor Charles Marshall Thatcher, Dad has given new meaning to the phrase, "Our Father who art in heaven." And as you bid Brother Chuck a long-awaited welcome to the chapter eternal, we can see him singing in its heavenly choir.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Carol, for those heartfelt sentiments. All we can all say is amen. We totally agree. We grieve your loss, and we extend our strong arms around you and your family at this difficult time. Now I'd like to ask that a video be played to commemorate our dear brother Chuck and his many years of service to Sigma Chi. And may his memory and his service to our beloved order be an example for us all.
Why are you here? Ambiguous question, isn't it? Or when I say here, I mean your position in life right now on this planet. Isn't that the most important here of all? Because life is a sequence of states of being, and we know all about where we are here. But what's more important is the process of becoming. That's the sign of the cross. To this day, I think that call myself a teacher is the wrong title. I would rather be called a facilitator, because teaching implies the transmission of knowledge. I told my class this first day of class, when you end the semester, you're going to know some things you don't know now. That's my job. You're going to be able to do some things that you can't do now. But more important than that, I hope that at the end of the semester you will be something different than what you are, and that it will be good. And frankly, if I can't do that, I've failed. And I took it from there. You got to know Sigma Chi. You got to believe in Sigma Chi. You got to love Sigma Chi. And as comfortable as you can be in this you that exists in this state of being, the easier it will be and the more successful it will be when you go on. I don't know whether I'm going to be able to come to workshop again next year, but they take such good care of me. And here I am, and I'm having the same wonderful time talking to undergraduates.
We're glad you're here.
I'm glad you're here. I'm here, and I care about you. And I can say that to anybody in the fraternity.
Thank you, Brother Ryan, and all the people that worked so hard on putting that video together. It is truly special, and what a wonderful memory for Brother Chuck and his family. Now, finally, certainly last but not least, I'd like to call on our current 71st Grand Consul, Brother Steve Schuyler.
Good evening, everyone. Let me first say thank you to Brothers Quiner, Wilson, Hester, and most especially Carol Thatcher for the way you honored our 48th Grand Consul tonight. Thank you also to the headquarters team for guiding us through this celebration, and a sincere thank you to the family of Brother Thatcher who are joining us here tonight. Brothers, wearing the Cooper badge and holding the office of Grand Consul is the greatest honor a Sigma Chi can have. The symbol of the office of the Grand Consul is the Daniel William Cooper Sigma Phi badge. While all the markings and meanings of the badge are identical to the Sigma Chi badge we all wear, except of course Phi in place of the Chi, there is a heavier weight to the obligations associated with it. When you wear the Cooper badge, you are at once presented with both the challenge of the office and the joys associated with it. You are filled with a sort of confidence instilled in you by the 250,000 living Sigma Chi's who place their trust and faith in you through the grand chapter. You are mindful of the history and the heritage of all this badge has experienced. When I think about some of the men who have worn this badge and what they have done, I find myself naturally humbled at the thought. Giants of Sigma Chi have come before me to wear this badge and have exemplified all the best our fraternity stands for. When I think of all those men, I of course think of Chuck Thatcher rightfully sits at the top of that list. Chuck is the last Grand Consul to have visited all the chapters of Sigma Chi during his term in office. While there were just about 175 chapters at that time, travel was a little more challenging than it is today. The fact that Chuck was able to pull that off is truly a testament to his commitment to the fraternity. That, along with his long litany of contributions and achievements by Brother Thatcher over his many years of service to Sigma Chi, humbles me in a way that even the Cooper badge itself struggles to do. I recall the moment at the last workshop where Brother Thatcher was present. We have a tradition in Sigma Chi of finding out who in attendance has been at the most workshops. When it got down to it, Chuck was the last man standing. I think he had more than 60 workshops. That level of commitment is so rare that it must be called what it truly is, unique. He was the definition of a lifetime commitment to Sigma Chi. Above all else, Chuck is best remembered for his being perhaps the personification of the concept of the spirit of youth. He had an infectious energy about himself, which he derived in large part from being around others who were much younger than himself. Ever the teacher, he relished mentoring young brothers. Every single person present tonight should be able to remember several moments when Chuck mentored us in one way or another. How fortunate we all are to have had Chuck guiding us, teaching us, and pushing us to be better men and a better fraternity as a result. When we think of what we would want our fraternity brothers to say at our own memorial service, I think we would all be delighted to have a fraction of the appreciation expressed about us as Chuck has tonight. Only but a few men in the long history of the fraternity may ever have come as close to be truly deserving as more than of that honor than he. As we say goodbye to our dearly departed brother, let us not dwell on the loss. Rather, let us celebrate the times we are so grateful to be able to appreciate one of the most remarkable men any of us has ever known, and that appreciation guide him to his rightful place in the chapter eternal. Imagine him now standing in the warm embrace of our founders and all of the past grand consuls who have gone before him. No one is more deserving of that thought. As our grand consul, I can honestly say it is my privilege on behalf of Sigma Chi to pay tribute to one of the greatest men to ever wear the Cooper badge. Brother Thatcher, you have brought new luster to the White Cross, and we bid you Godspeed. All honor to your name.
Thank you so much, Brother Steve. That is most appropriate, and I certainly share in your heartfelt thoughts and memories of Brother Chuck. Brothers, those of you who are familiar with the White Rose ceremony know that at this point in our ceremony, we all take a white rose and lay it in memory of our brother. Obviously, we're unable to do that together tonight, but in lieu of that, I want to read these thoughts from our White Rose ceremony. And while I read these, in lieu of placing a white rose for Brother Chuck, I want you to pause and think of memories that you have of Brother Chuck, what he meant to you, what sort of resonates in your heart about Brother Chuck, and then make a commitment to follow his example that he so worthily led for us. Inasmuch as our dearly beloved brother wore over his heart the white cross of Sigma Chi, whose immaculate whiteness symboled to us the purity of his motives, therefore it is most appropriate that he bear above his heart our emblem, and that we lay white roses in token of the sweet memories we will always cherish of him whom we loved so well. Let us unite in prayer. Almighty God, with whom do live the spirits of just men made perfect, after they are delivered from their earthly prisons, we humbly commend the soul of this thy servant into thy hands, who art our Creator, most humbly beseeching thee that it may be precious in thy sight. Amen. Today, Dr. Charles' brother, Chuck Thatcher, calls back to us, I have fought the good fight. I have finished my work. The white cross of Sigma Chi has gained new luster by my life. Bidding you Godspeed, so mote it be. I want to thank you, brothers and sweethearts of Sigma Chi, and a special thanks to the family of Brother Chuck. We all mourn his loss, but may his memory live in our hearts. Thank you, Godspeed, and good night.